All right, according to my computer, it's 9 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So welcome. It's our third webinar in our series, and today is 4-H financial management and club chartering. So I'm going to share my screen with everybody. Okay, is everybody seeing the PowerPoint? Hopefully. I need to pull up my lists. In the chat. If you guys are seeing the PowerPoint, just like, if you can just quickly give me a yes in the chat box, that would be great. Is everybody seeing the PowerPoint? I'm hoping so. Okay, good. Thank you, Sharon. I just wanted to make sure. So when we talk about I'm going to start with financial management. Really kind of financial management and club chartering sort of go together, but not 100%. So we are going, so just to start, we have to, and I know most of you have heard me say this before, but we have to remind our volunteers on a pretty regular basis that 4-H is a public organization, and so any money raised in the name of 4-H belongs to 4-H. Doesn't matter if it's a club, if it's a, whatever. But we have to remember that it's open to any youth within our eligibility parameters. And because of that, and because we do get taxpayer dollars, we are held almost to a higher standard for accountability and integrity. Also, because we're part of the university, we're held to that as well. We are accountable for all of our funds. That includes donations, dues, fundraisers, or any other sources. So just to remember that clubs can meet the standards if they just follow proper money handling methods and that are outlined. And then and they also need to remember this applies to any of our clubs or affiliates, and affiliates would be like leaders councils. If you have a livestock committee or a livestock sale committee that do not have their own separate 501c3, then they would be included in this. It does not matter if they collect 25 cents or if they have 2,500 or if they have 25,000 in their treasury. I hope none of them are sitting on 25,000 and have been for a while. If that happens, we need to chat because we have other issues with that. And we have to, remember that funds that are raised in the name of 4-H must be used for educational purposes. And so I know over the years I've had a lot of people raise money in the name of 4-H and not necessarily use it for educational purposes. Now, when I say educational purposes, that can be to buy t-shirts for the club members. That can be to, some clubs raise money and then loan money to their club members if they can't afford for their project. That gets a little bit touchy, but I've seen that more often than not. What they can't do is raise money to go to a national contest or a national event or even a state event and pay for moms and dads and brothers and sisters and grandmas and grandpas and everybody under the sun. It can only be used to pay for those 4-H members and the certified volunteers. But I had a club one time that would raise $25,000 to $50,000, and to go to a national horse contest. They went every year, and they would pay for everybody, and they would pay for everybody to go to Six Flags. And you really should not be using money fundraised to pay for kids to go to Six Flags unless there's an educational event there. So let's see. Just as a reminder that our extension educators, program managers, and/or community-based instructors in each of the respective counties where those clubs or those other local groups are located, you have the responsibility for ensuring that these policies are followed. And this includes how they manage their money. So some best practices, and these are all in, and I just realized this morning, yes, the PowerPoint is supposed to be changing. It's probably not. Are you guys seeing it change? I betcha it is, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing because I think I have to share it in a different place. Okay, thanks guys. Okay, nope, that's still not. Okay, this is like new technology right now. Trying to get this all figured out how to make it work. Okay. No, that's how I did it before. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure how this is going to. Okay. Does that change the screen at all? Sorry, I'm trying to find where my chat does not want to open. There we go. Nope. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I love it when this does it. Okay, well, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this since I will be looking over here. Okay. Now are we changing screens? No, it's still not. Oh, because I'm probably not. Okay. Okay. Do you guys see the now I gotta find my, do you guys see the 4-H is a public organization? Ha. Okay, now we're gonna try this. Okay, changing screens? Haha, score. Okay. It was, yeah, we won't go there. Okay, so now we're back to being okay. So some of our best practices, and so most of these are located in the policies and procedures. They're also located right now, currently. I discovered this morning that it is not, that the new policies and procedures was not put up on the website. So I need to go in and talk to Ashley, but I will, I sent her an email this morning. But these are actually still located under we have a document called Money Matters and Checklist for 4-H entities, and most of these things are in there. So any money raised in the name of 4-H needs to be deposited into a federally recognized financial institution in an account that bears the 4-H name. So what that means is, yeah, we're not going to go, you know, I thought it had been done. I sent it to her about a month ago, but I know she's been super busy with updates for the website. But essentially, if you have a club or an affiliate who is raising money or has money, they need to have that money in some kind of bank. So that can be a credit union, that can be whatever, but it cannot be in a coffee can in their kitchen, and it cannot be put into their own bank account. It has to be in a separate bank account. The check should require 2 signatures. Now, I will say that is on our level that it should require 2 signatures. Most banks do not require that. Most banks only require 1 signature, and checks will go through if there is only 1 signature. But from our end, we should have 2 signatures on those. It really should be, if you can, have the club treasurer and an adult leader. Now, those 2 cannot be related. You do not want them, you do not want any related individuals on the same account. If the banking institution does not allow a youth on the account, which we've run into this a few times, then you should have a club volunteer, another certified volunteer that is not related, be that second name on the account. The other thing that I will say, I know it's been brought up several times by people about having our staff on those accounts, and in a lot of I think it was at one point not allowed. We've run into some some issues with clubs that have disbanded. The leaders are they've been disbanded for a couple of years. The leaders are nowhere to be found, those that are on the account, and we don't have any access to those accounts. And so, and there's some, I've written letters and said, it's okay for them to, but the institution just will not allow it. So what I have done is, I've let counties know, hey, if you do need to be on the accounts, you can. You may not be, you're not going to be signing checks for them. You're not going to be doing anything, but that way we can get access to those accounts. It does, it's once in a while. So the other piece is you need some good money handling practices. There needs to be receipts for all of the monies that are received from the, for the club or affiliate, especially if it's cash. A lot of times I have a receipt book that I just, if I'm going to a 4-H event, and this is especially when I was at the county level, I just had one of those little receipt books that was like this big, just the duplicate ones. I just had it stuck in my purse, because when you're in the small towns, you run into people, at the bank and at the grocery store and wherever, and they're like, oh, wait, I forgot, I was going to give you this. And that way you can give them a receipt right away. It doesn't take up too much room. For the men, probably, be a little more difficult to put one in your purse, but you could figure out a way. Maybe, you have one in your car. All monies should need to be deposited into the bank within 72 hours. Is actually at the university. I think that is our policy, is they have to be deposited within 70. Well, some of them are within 24 hours, but most of them are within 72 hours of receiving the checks or the money. If you can, the accounts really should have the county extension office as a resident address. It can be, it can have the name of the volunteer, but it should be under the county extension office. Now, I know many of you have clubs that have been in existence for a long time, and they don't necessarily, that was not adhered to. So what you can do there is you would just set up some kind of policy that periodically they would share their bank statements with you. And then there really should be yearly budgets that are turned in by the clubs or the affiliates to the extension office by December 1st of each year. And okay, good, Sharon. So Sharon said they changed all of the old clubs to their address and it wasn't a problem. And that really is, that way if they are sending bank statements, you're getting those bank statements. Or if they bounce a check or anything, you're getting that information. So, and the clubs really should be turning in budgets to you by December 1st. For payments, members really need to approve the payments of any bills for clubs at their meetings. That way they're learning some of those money management skills, and it's technically, it's our money, but yet they're raising it. They should have that approval. It shouldn't be a volunteer just approving everything. It really should be the members going through. And there should be some kind of payment approval form that's used. And, we don't really have a template at the state level, but it could be just very simple. And then that receipt is attached. And they should require a receipt for any purchase. Financial records need to be kept up to date, and they should be reported at every club meeting. There should be a treasurer's report at every club meeting or affiliate meeting. Their clubs really should never have petty cash. Sometimes, like, I know, okay, so in Carson we have there is the fabric sale, or a lot of counties have, food booths or whatever. You need petty cash for those, but you make sure that it's documented, we started with this amount of cash, and that cash is then put back into the account. Some clubs like to have just a little bit of petty cash around. So, if you decide to, get snacks for a meeting or whatever, there's cash to do it rather than having to write a check or all of those pieces. So you really should, but it shouldn't be over $25, and that needs to be reported regularly. What happens with petty cash is it just leaves the door open for more, the chance of, oh, I'm going to borrow this $25 because I don't have $25 right now, and I'll just pay it back. And, sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. Club debit cards. So many times we say that there should be no debit cards, but honestly, okay, yeah, Sharon, definitely call me about signature changes and those types of things. I've worked with lots of banks on those. But so a lot of places are not taking checks anymore, and so you can set up parameters for your clubs to have debit cards. There is a lot higher risk for debit cards, and they're not recommended, but again, it's getting to be inevitable. Either it's cash or debit cards. There's a lot, like I said, a lot of places don't take checks anymore. So if that happens, the club should only have one debit card in that club's name. They should not have a debit card for each individual leader. The clubs, there should not be a PIN to that debit card. It should only be used as a credit card. That way it requires a signature every time, or that zip code is required every time for a purchase. There can be no cash advances or no withdrawals of cash taken out from the account. Original receipts need to be kept for the purchases. Debit cards should have the name of the club listed on them, not the particular person, and they should be checked out by anybody using the card. So, and there should be a written log that the club manages. Either the club treasurer or the club volunteer should manage that log of who has the debit card. And then all charges should correspond with that checkout log entry. There should not be, any personal purchases with the club debit card. If that happens, then the clubs need to let you know, or let us at the state office know. Those are the types of things that we have to be on the lookout for. Now, granted, sometimes, and it's happened to me with my university purchasing card, it was not that I grabbed the wrong credit card, but I think I was making a purchase on Amazon one day, and it automatically went to that card for some reason. I don't know why. And so there was a purchase. Things happen once in a while. We'll accept it once in a while, but we're not going to accept it all the time. PayPal accounts. This is another one that has come up recently. So if you have a club or some other kind of third-party vendor, we're working, I know the university is working on some guidelines, but for right now, these are, clubs, again, they're not recommended, but you know, it happens. So clubs there should be one PayPal account for the club, and the club treasurer and the adult volunteer should be the only people with access to that account. If the treasurer or that volunteer leaves their position, the account password needs to be changed, and that needs to be redistributed to the members. Again, original receipts must be kept for each one of the purchases. You know, it needs to be, and if there's any funds that are received through PayPal, it's important to provide a copy of that deposit to the treasurer, so that treasurer has that financial record. And it's the responsibility of the treasurer and the adult volunteer to develop that plan for keeping track of the purchases, receipts, and any statements that you get from PayPal. And it needs to be in writing. If they do have a PayPal account, it needs to be in writing and provided when they provide that annual financial summary or that end of the year financial summary, those plans need to be included in there. And there should be absolutely no personal purchases. So any questions on kind of those best practices? Okay. If you're going through and you have something that you question, please, just ask. I've probably seen it at some point in my career. So I, might be able to, and if I don't know the answer, I usually call Dan and say, Dan, tell me about this. But we do have end of the year reports and account audits that we do require. So those guidelines, and the guidelines are up on the website now. They're under the 4-H policies and procedures page. We haven't taken down anything, and they really, most of it has not been, just probably some of the deadlines is all, we really didn't have deadlines set. And so that's the main thing that's changed in those policies and procedures, or in the financial stuff. But those are up there. And so we have to remember that all of our, our state, district, and county group accounts where money is solicited, collected, and reimbursed or raised on behalf of 4-H needs to be audited and reported back annually. So this includes all of our chartered 4-H clubs, all of our other groups, such as 4-H leaders councils, if you have any project committees, so if you have a livestock committee that collects funds, if you have an after-school program, maybe if you've got a market animal sale committee that's not a separate 501c3. And then also if we have, also technically that should be our professional association as well. So for those audits, it should be, it should be a 3-person financial audit committee that's composed of a volunteer, the club treasurer, and another adult that's not from the same 4-H entity, if you can, to review how all the monies were received and spent. So each group needs to account for their collected funds and individual accounts, and then reconcile those checking and cash accounts on an annual basis. So, and there is a form for that. Basically what we're trying to teach them at the club level is basic money management and making sure, so by having them help with the audit and going through that, then you can, that teaches them those basic money management, as well as, that ensuring that they have proper use of the funds. So individual clubs and affiliates are required to complete the following. There's an annual financial reporting form and the annual club budget. These need to be submitted along with the last month's bank statement, need to be submitted to your offices no later than December 1st of each year, and then you're going to submit copies of those to the state 4-H office by December 31st. So if I were you, I would start trying to collect those. If they're due in December, I would start in about September. Now our club year runs from October 1 to September 30th, and that's what the fiscal accounting for the clubs should be, October 1 to September 30th. So, you know, they could start pulling that together in September and have it ready to go. So again, you know, you should keep a copy of that annual financial reporting form and that copy of that last bank statement in a locked file in your office for 5 years. So I'm hoping that we get to a point where you're not going to be sending me copies of the financial report or the last bank statement. We're just going to have a spreadsheet that counties will fill out with all of their information. But at this point, we're still collecting those financial reports. I know none of you have seen the request for that for this year. Dan and I have been working on trying to figure that all out. But if you do have those, you can go ahead and start sending those to us. If you do not have any from your clubs at this point, I would say start trying to get those for the 2017-2018 club year. And what will happen is once we, you know, we're gonna, like if I'm visiting your county, I may just say, hey, can I see, you know, where you have your annual summary financial reports. It's just, you know, that's one of those just steps in the process just to ensure that those copies are kept. So, you know, I'm not going to like go through them and, you know, I'll probably have already looked at them, or if Dan's out visiting, he may just look to see where they're at, just so we know that it's happening. So club assets. So this could be for any club that handles money or they acquire material assets. Our shooting sports clubs is a prime example for this, or some of our livestock clubs buy material, you know, buy equipment for their kids to use when showing. They need to have a clearly defined and known procedure for disposing of any funds or those assets if the club disbands. So money or assets that are acquired in the name of 4-H need to be used to benefit 4-H, even if that club disbands. So you cannot take the money or take the equipment and just parcel it out amongst the members or the leaders. Or you cannot transfer the money to a non-4-H group. You know, even if a club disbands and they say, oh, we want to donate our money to St. Jude's, technically they cannot do that. So what they can do is they can donate it back to the Nevada or to the county 4-H council, or if you have an endowment account, they could do that. They could donate it to the state endowment account. I've had them, you know, so mad that they weren't going to donate it to the county, they weren't going to donate it to the state, but they're going to donate it to National 4-H Council. And I'm like, great, go for it. Do they have to go through the campus? If they're going to donate it to the, not if they're going to donate it to the county 4-H council, or, you know, if they're going to go through our office, then yeah, we would go through the to the endowment account. So, but technically, I mean, they're not going to really get a tax credit because it's not an individual, it's a club. They could also sponsor a 4-H award, maybe at the county level or at the fair. I've seen that happen quite a bit, where, you know, a club's going to disband and they know it, and they've got, you know, $500. So they donate it for maybe the, you know, the High Point, you know, junior English writer at the county fair or whatever, that, you know, they choose what they want to do with it. But, and then that award is sponsored until the money runs out. Or maybe they sponsor an award at the end, you know, maybe they want to help sponsor the Volunteer of the Year award at your county achievement night. And they, you know, they sponsor that until the money's out. Or they could also donate it to another chartered 4-H club or entity. So, you know, if you know, Bouncing Bunnies disbands, and you know, you've got another club that deals with rabbits, they may want to donate it to them or donate the equipment. And we've seen that a lot, especially with shooting sports equipment. That happens a lot where a club, you know, just disbands, and so they give their equipment to another club in that county. But they, like I said, they cannot give it to someone else. Any questions on that? I don't think we ever really had a policy on that before, but it is in the policies and procedures. So sales tax exemption. I always get a lot of questions about sales tax exemption because clubs, for some reason, think that they are sales tax exempt. And so they are not. Clubs and affiliates are not exempt from paying sales tax. They're required to pay sales tax on goods that they buy for their own use in their club, and they are also supposed to collect tax when they are selling goods. The only 4-H groups that are sales tax exempt are those that receive their funding from taxpayer dollars. So that could be county, state, or federally appropriated funds. So many of your leaders' councils would not, because their money is not coming from tax dollars, but probably some of your operating funds at the county level may be coming from county appropriated dollars. So county tax money that's raised from taxes in your county. So essentially, if you're using money that you get from the county, then those are raised through taxes. So those are sales tax exempt. And so you would, if you're going to buy supplies for a workshop and you're using those funds, then you would go and get your sales tax exemption. But clubs need to understand that they are not. When we say you're tax exempt, that only applies to income tax exempt. There's, you know, and I went online and made sure I looked, you know, there are, if you have clubs that are selling items, you know, they may not say, okay, so this item is $1, so I'm going to charge $1.08. What they may do is they may charge, you know, the dollar, and then what they need to do is go onto the state of Nevada Department of Taxation website, and figure out how to pay the sales tax on those items. So you just build in the sales tax into the cost of the item. And it's not every item, and so that's why I say go to that State Department of Taxation website and look at that. So again, you know, this is one I always get this myth of, you know, my club is tax exempt, so we don't have to pay sales or hotel tax. And again, you know, as I said, yes, they do. Okay, here's the can of worms. The livestock sales. So I know a lot of you do have livestock sales in your counties that you run through your county office. It is a lot better if the market animal sale can be a whole separate entity, and your involvement is you have the county show. You can, and then you turn over the ribbon placings, or you might even run, you know, the order in which they placed, but you turn that over to the sale committee, and then you're out, and you don't have anything else to do with it. But I know that that is not the case in most of our counties in Nevada. So we get a lot of questions, and every year I have somebody, how do I give a buyer a W-9? For, you know, so they can use it for tax purposes. We cannot. If a person buys an animal at the county livestock sale, that animal is owned by an individual, and those proceeds go to the individual. So more than likely it's not tax deductible. If now say your county decides that you're going to keep 10% of all of the sale, you know, of the sale, you know, so you add it up and you raise $150,000 at your sale, you're going to keep 10%. So the county's going to keep $1,500. That portion of that may be tax deductible because it's going back to the 4-H program. But the money that they're giving, even the floor price, the whatever you want to call it, the blue sky money or the add-ons or whatever, may not be tax deductible. And you cannot give them a receipt for tax deduction. That is not allowed. So if they need to find out from their own individual personal tax accountant if that money is tax deductible. The reason I say that is because a lot of times after our sales, we put a big ad in the paper, thank you to the Pershing County market animal sale buyers, and it lists all of the buyers. That could potentially be a tax deduction because that could potentially be marketing of a business. And so, but again, they need to talk to their own tax accountant. So, again, as with all of our other aspects of the 4-H program, our auctions are subject to name and emblem rules, our IRS guidelines, and federal tax laws. So 4-H members, organizations, or contributors involved in these sales and events are strongly encouraged to seek guidance from their own tax advisors regarding the specific accountability and situations. You give permission for those groups to use the 4-H name and emblem. So they do need to be, if they are a separate entity, they need to be, or even if, even if they're part of your organization, part of the county, then they don't necessarily need to be chartered, but they need to be an affiliate group. We need to either have, if they're a separate 501c3 or they're a separate entity all on their own, then we would need to do an MOU or a memorandum of understanding. And I know Sharon, that's what they've done in Humboldt County. It is a separate entity, and we have established an MOU with that organization, and it makes a huge difference because it spells out exactly what they will do, exactly what you will do, and if anybody does not follow that, then they're gone. Then you're no longer involved. And so we do have the sample, we do have Sharon's MOU that we can use as an example, or at least a starting point. Thank goodness. But it is really important. The other thing is, if these sales, again, if they're used as fundraisers for 4-H, then we need to make sure those funds are given in accordance to the regulations. So essentially, if it's a fundraising activity, then it must have appropriate approval from the UNR Extension Office, be given, for that. Now, there's going to be some fact sheets that are no longer available on the USDA website, but I do have copies of those related to livestock sales, related to this fundraising. Then I'll put it in the Nevada box files that I share with everybody. So, but I just want people to be aware of that. The other thing we need to be aware of is it's a real possibility, especially in some of these counties that you make buku bucks on your animals. Those kids really need to be paying income tax on that, especially if they're, you've got your floor price and then you have your added money. So your floor price might be $1.25, but that animal sells for $7. If that's a steer and it weighs 1,000 pounds, you're looking at a lot of money, and those young people need to be really need to be paying taxes on that, which means you or the entity, the livestock sale committee, may be having to send out 1099s on those. That's why I say it's really better for you to not do them, because those 1099s are kind of a booger sometimes. And a lot of times our families don't think about it. most places I've lived, they don't make a lot of money on their animals. You know, they really don't make a profit of more than, you know, $600. But in Nevada, I've seen it more often than not. All right, so fundraising. Any questions on the livestock sales? If you ever have questions on that, just please give me a call. You know, like I said, I've probably seen it at one point in my career. So, okay, so fundraising. Anybody who wants to do a fundraising event needs to submit a fundraiser request form to the county office. There is in the policies and procedures, there is an example of one, or there is a template for one. And so please, you know, I tried to put that in there. It's back in the appendices. And, you know, I think it's really important that we do have, you know, that we do have that, because we find out what is a fundraiser for, what is the grant that they're applying for, you know, how are they going to use it? We don't want clubs out just fundraising to fundraise. They need to have a purpose for it. Again, you know, fundraising programs using the 4-H name and emblem need to be carried out for specific educational purposes. You know, they must have approval from the office, from your office. And any money received from 4-H or from fundraising programs, expect, you know, that those are necessary to pay reasonable expenses, or that they can be used for those educational purposes. So money, private money, support money should be used, you know, priority is educational purposes, and they should be accounted for efficiently and fully. So again, you know, we're giving them use of the name and emblem, so we have every right to ask for that information. And any use of the 4-H name and emblem is forbidden if it exploits the 4-H programs, its volunteer leaders, or 4-H youth participants, or USDA, Cooperative Extension, the land-grant university, or their employees. So the 4-H name and emblem may not be used to imply endorsement of commercial firms, products, or services. I don't know how many of you saw the email that I sent out day before yesterday, but there's these super cute, I think they're super cute, 4-H sweatshirts and t-shirts. Like, they have some baseball style t-shirts that have an animal head on them with 4-H clovers inside. They're on Facebook, and I did send an email to USDA and said, is this an approved, you know, an approved vendor of 4-H paraphernalia? And I got it, absolutely not. They have not even attempted. And so, you know, you guys can choose to do what you want with that, but just know, sometimes when you see those, you know, and again, that's kind of one of those commercial firms, those money raised cannot be used for personal gain. And so we have to be really careful of that. So, yeah. Someone, yeah, I mean, they're super cute. I was like, gosh, I want one of those sweatshirts so bad. Or, you know, the t-shirts are super cute, but I personally cannot ethically do that, you know, order them. And I actually had, I posted on their Facebook page, I said, or on their little stream, I said, are you an approved vendor? Trying to get people to kind of get that. And I think it's a 4-H volunteer here in Nevada actually replied back and said, I've already turned them into USDA. And so we do have some volunteers that actually listen to the name and emblem speech too. But again, you know, it's a fundraiser type situation. So if you do, if you're using products or services, you know, that you're offering for sale, you want to put on there somewhere, you want to put a disclaimer that says a portion of the sale prices of this product or service will be used to to promote 4-H educational programs. No endorsement of the product or service by 4-H is implied or intended. That is really, we want to make sure that that happens. It's, if you ever are hanging out with an ag agent, and I don't know if, I haven't been hanging out with any here, but at one time, a portion of my assignment when I was at the county was actually, I was 20% the ag agent for a 3-county area. I was the only ag agent for a 3-county area and 20% of my time. But one of the things that I would do was we would send in soil samples, and I would get back what the potassium, and it's been too long since I've done that now. But anyway, I would have to give them fertilizer recommendations. Well, I couldn't say go buy Roundup or go buy this fertilizer. I would just have to tell them what their fertilizer makeup should be. But you should not tell them to go buy a certain product. And that even, honestly, that's even true within 4-H. It's tough, but as much as you can, try not to tell people specific products. Grants. We're seeing more and more 4-H leaders wanting to apply for grants. If you have, or even youth, if you have adult volunteers, members, clubs, and or affiliates that want to apply for grants, they cannot apply for or receive the grants without permission from the county office or the state 4-H office. I know it's hard. Totally understand it's difficult. And it's not getting any easier, but it is really important. Part of that is because of our requirements as an educational institution. We have certain requirements for managing grants, and then also if programming, we have to make sure we're following those institutional review board policies, etc. And that we're not mismanaging any funds in those grants. That's why the university is getting involved. And I'll tell you, actually, with one of the benefits of being merged with Cabner is they have a grants person that is 100% with Cabner, and she is fantastic. When we were doing the Friends of the NRA grants this year, yes, we had to get them done a lot earlier than we normally, we couldn't wait until November 1st to get them done. We had to get them done at least a week to 2 weeks ahead of time. But man, she made it so smooth, and so to me it was an easy process. And so that's been fantastic. And I know I'm working with a county right now that's applying for a county coalition grant, and Kim has been fantastic to work with on that. So know that we do it. While it's a challenge, because we have to think about it, it's also Kim has been a valuable asset to us, and she wants to make it easy for us. She doesn't want it to be hard. All right, any questions about fundraising or any of the financial stuff? Because we're going to move into chartering. Okay, so chartering. And this is a little bit different than probably some of you are familiar with, but this is a process that we're moving towards. We do not need to charter our leaders councils, our livestock sale committees, any of our project committees in our counties. We only need to charter our 4-H clubs. Those other entities need to get a letter of authorization from us. So and again, I know that that's completely different than many of you have heard, but there's no reason to charter those other entities rather than the clubs. So if you've got a club charter, that's an actual certificate, and many of you, you know, have seen those certificates that you get that's issued by USDA, and it's signed by the Secretary of Agriculture or their designee, and then also the land-grant university representative. So I sign it as well as and I'll answer your question in just a second, Sharon, and Dr. Lyle signs it, and then there's actually a space for you to sign it at the county level. If there's a committee that was chartered way back when, that's fine. You know, we've got their charter, you know, but you don't need to charter any new ones, just so everybody's aware of that. And then the letter of authorization, it's, you know, it's pretty much a lot easier process. That's a letter that's issued by the state 4-H office that just gives them the authorization to use the 4-H name and emblem. So those are typically your leaders councils, your livestock sale committees, you know, any affiliate groups. So why do we charter our 4-H clubs? Well, federal regulations mandate that each of our entities be officially chartered through either the charter certificate or that letter of authorization. That's both for USDA, and it's also a situation with IRS. Those are the entities that they're looking at that funding, you know, and knowing who's who. So that charter or that letter of authorization recognizes or identifies 4-H entities that are eligible and approved to use the 4-H name and emblem. So, you know, again, and sometimes we have businesses that maybe want to use the 4-H name and emblem, things like Tractor Supply. You know, when you go into Tractor Supply, they've got 4-H clovers. They have been granted that authorization from the federal level. Because if you remember my talk about the 4-H name and emblem, if it goes across county lines, then they need that authorization from the state office. If it goes across state lines, then you need that authorization from the federal level. But they have received that, and there is a list of officially certified, or you know, those that are official vendors for 4-H. Things like custom ink, or if you're buying t-shirts, if you have a local vendor that's making t-shirts for you, you know, they would need a letter of authorization technically for that, you know, so that they do have permission to use the name and emblem. So again, how do the 4-H entities receive that? You know, we do give, here's the process. So, okay, we've talked about that. So if you have a club that needs to get a charter, there is a form on our website that is a charter application. We're going to continue to use that one for right now. I do want to tweak it a little bit, but we're going to continue to use that one for the time being. And it will be, I will also put a copy of that in the Nevada box, but that is under our policies and procedures page. So you'll be able to find that. In that charter application, there is an equal opportunity statement that needs to be signed, because that is part of the, that's part of our civil rights audit. And actually in the future, we're going to have to work on figuring out how our clubs sign that yearly. As part of our civil rights audit, that was one of the recommendations that came back. And then there should be a 4-H plan of work, and I believe that it's just basically, you know, what are you going to do every month? It's just getting them thinking about what they're going to be doing. And then they need to have a completed constitution and bylaws. We do have a template on the website that, you know, that they can use for those constitution and bylaws. So those need to be provided in order to get a charter. And what you would do is you would send, I believe you send a copy of all of those to our office. I need to double check. I'm almost thinking though, if you can keep a copy of the plan of work and the Constitution and bylaws in your offices, we don't necessarily need the, we just need the charter application. And the reason I say that is because I mean, I know all of your storage space, but our storage space is extremely limited. So I'm not sure how much space we would have to store all of those. I know we have 4 huge binders right now of charter paperwork. And then if they want a letter of authorization, essentially there is not a letter of authorization application right now, but they could fill out the charter paperwork at this point. I mean, I don't think we have any really, but I do have it on my to-do list. Eventually, I will get a letter of authorization application. And then they also need to have the signed equal opportunity statement. And if it's applicable, if you have, you know, leaders council or a committee or something that needs to have a constitution and bylaws, then they would need that. But they don't necessarily need, you know, like you wouldn't necessarily need that for all of them. So how do you request a charter or a letter of authorization? You're going to send the completed, okay, so it does say just send the charter application and the signed equal opportunity statement to our office. At that point, then we're going to do the charter for you and mail it back to the county to give to your club. So I would suggest that you keep a copy of that charter in your files at the office and then give the original to the club. You're going to keep that 4-H plan of work and the completed constitution and bylaws in your county office. If I have not stated it before, I would highly recommend you have a filing cabinet with each club has a file, and you put this kind of information, you know, all their financial records, their constitution, their plan of work, a copy of their charter, a copy of their each year's financial reports, etc., in that file. I would also suggest that you have another drawer, or even maybe it's right behind that club, with a file for each volunteer that you keep their information in. I personally found that to be one of the best ways to keep things organized and make sure that you have it. Or if you want to have binders, or however you want to do it, but I would keep all of your club paperwork together. So chartering clubs, yeah, how would you go about changing the name? So I'm going to go over that in just a minute, Cindy. So if we have a club that wants to remain in good standing, then they need to provide a positive youth development environment that upholds the dignity and educational purposes of the 4-H program. They also need to maintain the 5 members from 3 different families. The one thing I always tell people is if you have clubs that may fall, maybe they keep the 5 members, but maybe it's from 2 families, you know, that's okay for a year or so, but not on a regular basis. And the reason we have that requirement is, you know, we're here for the positive youth development experience. That the project that they're getting is the spark that gets them into the 4-H program, but that's not our goal. Our goal is not to have, you know, a world champion archer. It'd be awesome if we did, but our goal is for them to have a positive youth development experience. You cannot have a positive, I mean, you can have a positive youth development experience, but it's a lot harder if you're with your family all the time. You know, you want them to interact with other families, you know, with other kids. And so that's why we really say it really should be 5 from 3 different families, because you want them to have that rich educational experience. But they also need to submit those annual financial reporting forms. It says club audit forms. Eventually, we're going to get to the point where there's going to be a 1-page form that they have to complete for it when they complete the audit. Right now, they don't have to, but you know, they have to turn in those annual financial reports. If they don't, then they are not in good standing. And then they also need to follow all of our 4-H policies and procedures. If you have a club that falls out of good standing, we can go into 4-H Online and we can suspend that club. When, you know, I had a club one time that would not turn in the annual financial report. I mean, they just flat out refused. And what we did was, it was just the leader that did it, and the parents were telling her to send it in. You know, it was kind of crazy. What we did is we went into 4-H Online and we put that club, we suspended that club, or how, I can't remember. We didn't archive it. We didn't, you know, we just suspended it. So members couldn't go in and enroll. And by gosh, within a week, we got that financial report, because the parents were just completely irritated that they could not enroll. They couldn't participate in any events because that club was not in good standing. So you do have something to hold over their heads. So do clubs or affiliates need to recharter? In our forms right now, it says that they have to recharter every 5 years. No, they do not. I don't know why they established that, but once a club is chartered and it does not disband, then they don't need to recharter. I mean, you know, there's no reason for it. It's just more paperwork on your end, on their end, on our end, and there's no reason. That is not a federal guideline. That is not any kind of guideline. It was just ours. So they're good until something, you know, in case something happens. So if a club disbands for a year with a new volunteer, you know, so maybe they like disband for a year, but then, you know, a parent decides they're going to step up and be the volunteer in that club. You don't need to send all the paperwork back. They're going to keep the same name. They're going to do everything the same. You don't need to send in the paperwork. What you need to do is just let us know. You can send me a quick email that says, hey, you know, Bouncing Bunnies has a new 4-H, you know, has a new leader. Here's their contact information. And then we just make that change in our database. If the club doesn't disband but gets new volunteers, you just need to let us know who those new volunteers are. If the club name changes, but they don't change anything else, just let us know and we'll make that change. We don't necessarily have to reissue them a new charter. If they want a new charter, we can do that. They don't have to fill out all the paperwork. We can just we can just make the note on their original paperwork, but we don't have to reissue the charter. It's super simple. But if we do have a club that disbands, or they're suspended, or you revoke their charter, which can happen, I mean, we do that quite frequently, you need to let us know. I mean, before you do that, you're probably already going to be consulting with the state 4-H office, but you know, just let us know and we'll go in and change their charter status. We have a database. There's also a place in 4-H Online, and I can't remember if that is set up just at the state level or if that is set up for counties to enter the data. I need to check that. But there is a place in 4-H Online that we can put their, you know, when they received their official charter, like the year that they received their official charter, and we can also, you know, you can put it in there, you know, it's been revoked, it's been, you know, however, whatever, there's different categories. And you know, that's been a goal of mine, is to get all of that, you know, all the data that we have here. I want to get that into 4-H Online so you can just go in and look and see when that club was chartered. That's one of the, you know, that's a good benefit of 4-H Online. So any questions about chartering right now? Hopefully that answered your question, Cindy. I'm trying to make the chartering stuff as easy as possible for you, because you know, everything else is complicated. So I'm trying. Okay, so some things that, and I know we've been talking about this for a while. The IRS stuff, the tax exemption, all of that has been turned over. The donations. That has been turned over to Dan. He and I have been working on it. He's been calling IRS to make sure all the paperwork's in order. But in the meantime, if you have a club or if your council or somebody wants to collect donations, there's a couple of ways that you can do that. I know a lot of the counties now, a lot of them have established an account under the University Foundation. You can, we can work with you on that. We also, you can also put those into the state 4-H Foundation account. What we do is we have a spreadsheet that we then keep track of. Okay, here's, if this is, Bouncing Bunnies, they got a donation of $50, then we have a separate line item for that. And then you would have access to those funds. What you would do is you would, if you need to purchase something for that, then you would purchase that and we would give you the work tag. You would work with the state 4-H office, the admin assistant, to set that up to begin with, because we have to make sure that we're following all the proper procedures from the foundation office, and we've gotten into trouble a couple of times, and so we're really trying to make sure, but we can, we can do it. The nice thing is too, again, we have Mitch, who is our development person for Cabner, and Mitch is fantastic about, I'll send him an email and say, hey, what do you think, we've got this coming, is this a gift, is this a grant, what's a procedure that we need to do to get this into the, into the development account, into the foundation account. Again, counties, you can set up your own foundation accounts to accept donations. You can work with Dan, our UNCE fiscal person, or you can work with the state 4-H office admin assistant on that, to get those, to figure out how to do those. I know those counties that have Tractor Supplies, I believe all of them have their own separate foundation accounts now, because that's how we have to, that's how we accept those funds. And then, we work with you on those. So we are, I promise, I mean, I know it's been a long time that we've been working on these. For new people, you weren't aware, but it's been kind of a mess. And what had happened in the past is IRS is no longer allowing to happen. So we are working on trying to get that fixed. It's just, this is a slow, I mean, you guys know what IRS is like. It's a slow process. And so we just have to be very, we're just taking it step by step. So Dan and I met a couple of weeks ago about it, and we're trying to meet like at least every couple of weeks, every 3 to, at least monthly to keep things moving. So, but we do have, ways that we can collect donations. It's really not, it's not the ideal situation, but it's not that hard. So, any questions about that? Okay, anything about any topic we've talked about today? The big thing is, if you have questions, call. That's, that's probably the biggest thing. Okay, any other, if nobody has any questions, we're done early. Wow, that never happens with these. Next month, and I can't remember what we're talking about next month. I should know, but I don't remember, and I don't have that. I was just going to look to see if I had, we'll look at the form really quick. Oh, the other thing I'm going to let you guys know while everybody's on, or, while we have quite a few of you on here and we're talking about chartering. I went through, we were cleaning up a county's clubs in 4-H Online, and I went through and I printed off, or I saved everybody's club list from 4-H Online, and I am going to be sending that to every county. I want everybody to review that And I want you to let me know what clubs we need to delete, what clubs we need to keep, or what clubs we need to archive or delete, however we want to do that. But I'm just letting you know, and that kind of goes with the chartering. You're going to know, I have not compared those lists to the chartered list, but I just want everybody to know that that is coming. So we're just trying to get things a little bit cleaned up. Hopefully it'll help you guys in 4-H online, because there's a lot of clubs there that aren't necessarily still in existence. So, okay. I'm trying to find, next month, we are talking about, sorry. Next month is volunteer management resources and then opportunities within 4-H. So we won't necessarily talk about the volunteer application process, even though I may go over some things in that I never have in the past. But what I want to give everybody is some tools to manage volunteers. Until we can get a volunteer management or volunteer specialist, which hopefully will be in about July, we can start posting it. But I want to give you some tools. And yes, thank you for, if you guys do have charters that you need to have done, I know I've gotten a few, please bear with me. Without an administrative assistant, I'm trying to get everything done as best as I can, but I honestly don't know where. I have to find where those are even located on her computer. And so it may take me a little while, but if I've got your applications in, they're good. Don't stress, they can get going. Don't stress about it. I will have a file in case, I don't get them done, but I'm going to try to get them done as best I can. So just bear with me on charters, but know that they're okay. As long as I have their application in, they will be good to go. So, all right. Any other questions? Okay, well, everybody have a great rest of the week. We're halfway through. Yay. So, thank you very much, and I will talk to everybody next month.